We'll start with the two big languages of the web. Then we'll dive into how to build a structure with HTML, make that structure a little smarter, and then the fun part, making it look good and controlling the layout with CSS. Finally, we'll see how it all comes together. Honestly, the easiest way to think about building a website is to think about building a house, right? You need two things. First, you need a blueprint, something that lays out the rooms, the walls, the whole structure. And second, you need an interior decorator to pick the colors, the furniture, and make it actually look like a home. On the web, that's HTML and CSS.
Let's start with our blueprint, HTML. HTML could not care less about colors or fonts or any of that visual stuff. Its only job is to give the page structure. It defines the headings, the paragraphs, the images. It's the bare-bones skeleton that everything else gets attached to.
And the most common piece of that skeleton? It's called the div. The best way to picture a div is as a plain, empty cardboard box. You can put stuff in it to keep things organized, but the box itself, well, it doesn't tell you anything about what's inside. It's just a generic container. But we can do better than just a generic box, right? While a div is a plain container, an element like section actually has a purpose. It's telling the browser, hey, listen up. Everything inside this box belongs together. It's all about the same topic. Think of it as the difference between a plain box and one that's got Chapter 1 written on the side. It gives our structure meaning.
Okay, but what happens when you have something more complex than just paragraphs? You know, like a class schedule or a list of prices. For that, HTML has a special tool, tables. They are designed specifically to organize data into clean rows and columns.
And it's actually pretty logical when you look at it. The table tag starts the whole thing. TR creates a new table row. Inside that row, you use THA for your column headers, like name and age, and then you use TD for the actual data cells in the rows below. See? Super clean and organized?
You know, this whole idea of giving our code meaning is a really big deal. We can make our HTML way smarter by using tags that actually describe what they are, instead of just stuffing everything into generic div boxes. Honestly, this shift was a total game changer for how the web works.
So when you use tags like header, article, or footer, you're doing more than just organizing your page. You're giving clues to search engines like Google, which helps them understand what your page is about. And even more importantly, it's absolutely crucial for accessibility tools, like screen readers for visually impaired users, so they can navigate the page in a way that makes sense.
And speaking of accessibility, this right here might be one of the most important things in all of HTML, the alt attribute. It's just a simple text description for an image. It gets read out loud by screen readers, and it's also what shows up if the image breaks. It's such a small thing, but it makes a huge difference in making the web usable for everyone.
Okay, so our house has its structure. The HTML blueprint is done. But right now, it's just a bunch of gray concrete walls. It's functional, but it's not pretty. So it's time to call in the interior decorator, CSS. This is what adds all the color, the fonts, the layout, basically all the style that makes a website feel alive. Now, to style something, you first have to tell CSS what to style. And you've got two main tools for that. An ID is like a person's unique fingerprint. There's only one. You'd use it for something like your main logo. A class, on the other hand, is more like a reusable sticker. You can slap the same class on a bunch of different things, like giving every important button a primary button class to make them all blue.
So once we can select things, we can do way more than just change their color. CSS is also in charge of the entire layout. It controls the spacing and positioning of every single thing on the page. It's how we decide where to put the furniture in our digital room.
But how does that really work? I mean, how does a website get such perfect pixel-level control over the empty space around a button or between two paragraphs? Well, the secret lies in one of the most fundamental concepts in all of CSS.
It's called the box model. Basically, every single element on a web page is treated like it's inside a box. Right at the center, you have your content, your text or image. Around that, you have padding, which is like bubble wrap inside the box. Then you have the border, which is the actual edge of the box itself.
And finally, there's the margin, which is the empty space outside the box that pushes other elements away.
And these boxes have their own little personalities too. A block element is kind of greedy. It takes up the whole width of the page and forces a new line after it. An inline element is more polite. It just sits right inside a sentence without causing a fuss. And then you have inline block, which is the best of both worlds. It sits on a line, but you can still control its size, which is awesome for things like buttons in a navigation bar.
All right, so we have our HTML structure, our blueprint, and we have our CSS, our style, and decoration. When you put these two together, you can build just about anything. But there's one last piece to the puzzle. How do you make a site look great on a tiny phone and on a giant desktop monitor?
The magic trick for that is something called media queries. It's a super powerful feature in CSS that lets you write rules like this. Hey, if the screen is wider than 1,000 pixels, make the font big. But if the screen is narrower than 600 pixels, stack everything in a single column. It's the absolute key to creating modern, mobile-friendly websites. And that's it. In just a few minutes, we've gone from a blank screen to understanding the skeleton and the style that powers the entire web. You know about the blueprint, HTML, and the decorator, CSS. You've got the fundamental building blocks. So really, there's only one question left. What are you going to build first?